And Dr. Lucas is in the studio with us from Diabetes and Endocrinology. Good morning, doctor. How are you?
Good morning. I'm great.
Good to have you with us. What are we talking about today?
We're talking about Sglt2 inhibitors.
Oh, I have one in my pocket.
No. Everybody knows what that is.
Really? Well, let's start there. What is that?
This is a new class of drugs for diabetes. They've been out on the market about a year. And I think they have a lot of ads on TV, so people sort of know what they are. But what they don't understand is the kidney normally holds on to sugar. It holds on to sugars and proteins and all the nutrients that it's supposed to, and it puts it back in the blood. So if you have diabetes, you don't necessarily want your kidney to hold on to all the sugar and put it back in there. You'd rather not. So these medicines block the sodium glucose transporter. That's what the Sglt2 is.
Okay.
S for sodium, and glucose is GL, and T is transporter. So there's several different varieties, and this is variety 2. And these particular drugs just block that, so that the kidney doesn't really hold on to any sugar, or maybe a little bit. But say if your sugar was high, you have diabetes, a lot of times it goes out in your urine because the kidney can't hold on to it because the sugar is too high. So your sugar might be 200 and the kidney gets rid of sugar. Well, now, if you take this medicine, even if the sugar is normal, you'll still be getting rid of sugar out of the body. And that leads to getting rid of calories out of the body. So people like these drugs because they pull calories out as well as sugar. So they reduce the sugar. So a lot of times if the sugar goes up and down, it evens out the blood sugar pretty well. They work really well. There's a lot of...
Did you ever do any testing on some of these?
Yes, we're doing a lot of studies with these, and they're very interesting drugs. There's going to be more and more of them too. So they're not going to come down in price because, you know, price is always the same, even if they have more competition.
Right. But there are a number of them out. What ones would
There's 3 of them out right now. There's Invokana, there's Farxiga, and there's Jardiance. And those 3 are out. There are 3 different companies that make them. Probably Invokana pulls the most sugar out, but it might have the most side effects. If you have side effects with one, then the other ones might be appropriate to try because different people have different reactions to medications.
What kind of side effects?
Side effects would be, of course, it pulls sugar out as well as fluids. So it may be that it's pulling too much fluid out. So if it pulls too much fluid out, you're going to get lightheaded and dizzy, like dehydrated, and you would need to drink a lot of water, which you should be doing anyway, but if you're taking these medicines, you really want to push it. If you're on a diuretic already, you may have to cut back on the dose of that because you don't really need it as much. It lowers, these medicines also lower blood pressure because they pull salt and sugar and water, you know, out of your body too. So a lot of times you don't need as much blood pressure medicine if you're on them, but you need to keep the fluids going. Also, having a lot of sugar in your urine may or may not be good because it can cause infections, and the concern is about bladder infections. If you have sugar in there, and that tends to make bacteria grow more, so that you get the bladder infections. If you have bladder infections or bacteria in your urine, it can go up into your kidneys and get kidney infections, and you get real sick.
So some of it could be retained in the bladder. Is that the idea?
Yeah, I think it's just the fact that it's so much sugar in there. Most people urinate it out, but it's a constant flow of sugar, and bacteria like sugar.
Again, all the more reason to drink more water.
Yeah, if you drink more water and dilute it out, that's fine. As your sugar comes down, though, in your blood, you won't have as much sugar in your bladder. Yeast infections are the other thing that likes sugar. Vaginal yeast infections, men get yeast infections also. They don't like to think about it, but they can, and it's probably worse in them. So yeast infections, bladder infections, dehydration. There was some concern that it might be pulling some calcium out of the body too. I don't know if that's really been proven with Invokana, but they're still looking at that. The bone density was studied in the other 2, and it was okay, but we don't know for sure if it's pulling anything else out that you need. But those are the main problems. There was also some concern about ketoacidosis in people with diabetes, that people would stop their insulin because their sugar was doing so good.
Oh. So what is ketoacidosis?
Ketoacidosis is when you don't have enough insulin and you have to break down fat to get some sugar in your body because you don't have insulin pulling in the sugar into the cells, and you generate ketones, and ketones make you nauseated and sick, and they're an acid, so they make you acidotic and you get real sick, dehydrated. Some people go into comas and you can die from it, so you don't want to get that. But that's the main problem, was that they needed the insulin anyway, even though the sugar looked good. And then the sugar would look good because in ketoacidosis, a lot of times the sugar would be high, and that's how you would know that you would be worried about it. Well, if a medicine is helping you pull sugar out of your body, your sugar looks low, but you can still be sick. So there was a concern about the ketoacidosis situation. Usually people with type 2 diabetes, which is the drugs are approved for type 2 diabetes, don't have to worry about it as much. But some of them are on insulin. They don't make insulin anymore. So if you don't make insulin anymore, even though your sugar's better, you may still need some insulin. So you don't want to go around stopping medicines without checking with your doctor for that.
So this is it kind of artificially reduces the sugar. You know, it's not doing it naturally. Obviously, it's doing it as a result of a chemical reaction.
Right, it's pulling sugar out of your body, so your blood sugar looks better. And of course, if you have less sugar in your blood, it's not going to stick to as much stuff. So it should prevent a lot of complications of diabetes. One of the medicines did a long-term heart study looking at their risk factor for heart attacks, and that was Jardiance. And Jardiance showed that it reduced heart attacks in that group. So that was very interesting. That's really the first diabetes drug of the new generation of drugs that is really
but
shown
it can
that.
mask your insulin issue. I mean, that you
don't need as much insulin. However, if you are insulin deficient, you may still need a little insulin. So people that, in one study, they were supposedly type 2s, and a lot of them stopped their insulin. I think that's where you get this problem, is people are falsely thinking their sugar's great, and they really need the insulin.
Okay, we're talking about these SGLT2 inhibitors.